It's kind of like you get a little paranoid as you see nobody looking. Yeah. And there we are. Hey, everyone. Glad to have you this evening. Again, just let us know if you're on. We're going to give it some time just to let people catch up and get online and all that kind of good stuff. Because, just like we are at Church World, we'll always show up late. And it's probably no difference in tech world. Here we go. Hey, this evening, I am beyond thrilled to have a special guest with someone who means the world to me, a good friend. Absolutely love him to death. And so the reason why this is really exciting is because this is an opportunity for my former world and my present world to collide. And I'm really excited for Austin Oaks Church to kind of get to meet Chad Ellenburg, the man, the myth, the legend. Great leader. Pleasant Valley is so blessed to have him there. And so without further ado, I want to introduce you to a good friend of mine, Pastor Chad Ellenburg. Hey, Chad.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for having me.
How we doing, man?
We're doing good.
Look at this. I like this. It's just like we get people from both sides of the world showing up. Hey, Todd, how you doing, brother?
Hey, Todd.
Good to see you. So, hey, just letting you know, okay? So this is a free game. I got to forewarn you. Normally, these interviews are probably rated G. This one might get PG rating.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, we tend to laugh
only from the Texas side.
Yeah, right, you're right. So do know that this is two friends coming back together and going to share some good stories. So also, if you got questions, we will post those up on the screen, and we'll try our best to answer them. But we're going to have some lighthearted dialogue. We're going to ask some questions, and we're going to do some deep dive into what does it look like to be quarantined with Jesus. If you are part of Pleasant Valley, that was a tremendous sermon Chad gave. Just so you know, Chad, I listen to your messages, not for any other reason, but to be blessed. Because
you're the one.
Yeah, that's exactly right. But I was just listening to your message, and I mean, it blessed me. But nonetheless, that's not how I want to start out. So I want to ask you some questions, Chad, and I'm totally throwing you right on the spot. So why were you so out of tune?
Yeah, man, just lost that edge for singing, and just can't do it anymore. Just lost.
you moved from one position to the next, and you no longer can sing. But no,
right.
So here you go. Here's question number one. All right.
Is this from you or from?
No. Well, yeah. They're sort of from me.
It's from your bag of tricks.
The world wants to know, Chad.
Okay.
What do you think of garden gnomes?
Well, they come to life after midnight, and they run around your yard, and so you got to be careful and don't let your dog out after midnight. And yeah, they have a little party going on out there. I don't have a garden gnome. I am that guy that I cut my grass down to the base, as my dad would say, because I don't want it to grow. I'd like for it to stay very, very short, and so I scalp my lawn to hope that it doesn't grow very much. But my wife Lisa makes our yard look pretty, and there's all kinds of cool flowers and stuff like that. But no gnomes, no garden gnomes.
All right. How about this one? Which of the seven dwarfs do you most identify with?
Oh my goodness. The only one I can think of is Sleepy right now. Is that one of them? Yeah. Sleepy. Actually, one of my favorite moments is Sunday afternoon after when I walk out of this building, not because I don't like church, I think it's wonderful, but all that work all week of listening to the Lord and getting excited to share a sermon and participating, and you get here 6 a.m. on Sunday morning, you leave at 1. When I walk out the door, I know that I'm going to have lunch, and then I am going to be Sleepy the dwarf on the couch. And it's so exciting. It's one of my favorite moments of the week is when it's like, yes, Lord, you did it. And I'm tired.
The post-sermon nap. Yeah.
That's right.
I was going to say, it's like these questions are the byproduct of being quarantined right now. It's like I couldn't think of anything serious to say.
Right.
I was like, gosh, if I was a dwarf today, you'd call me grumpy. I was grumpy.
Yes.
Anyway, all right. Now, I was thinking about social distancing and some of the things that we might like to do when we get to see each other again. So I was thinking, well, what is the best thing to say to someone in the middle of a hug?
If it's a man hug, like that's, even my daughter knows this. She actually has called this out at church. When I see a guy come up, usually it's probably a side hug, and there's usually a do. How you doing, brother? And so Abigail will, my youngest, will come up and hit me on the back, and it's usually 2 taps. How's it going, brother? And that's what she says to me. So she knows how to do it. So that's what I say usually is, how's it going, brother? Or good to see you. But yeah, it's not a guy thing very much.
No, I was trying to think of some of the funniest things that I could say, but couldn't think of any. All right, this one might be hitting a little close to home here, okay?
Yep.
Because there's a few moments where you were. I'll just ask the question: what is the dumbest way you've been injured?
Let's see.
Let's see. How many cast breakers have you preached in?
What's weird is, before I came to Winona, Minnesota, I had one break, and it was my pinky from playing football. And I was quarterback. I wasn't even a good quarterback. It was second string, and didn't start a game or anything. But in practice, took a snap right into my finger and broke it. And that's the only break I ever had in my life. And then I come up here and I play soccer with college guys, and I break my foot, and I'm in cast on stage. And then we go a family vacation to California, and broke my shoulder in 3 places. And yeah, there's been a few, but it's only since I've come here, so it's something that goes with the turf, I guess.
All right, last question for now.
For now,
what do you wish I would have done different?
What do I wish you would have done different?
Yeah, what do you wish I would have done before I left? I'm not looking for a compliment. I'm just messing with you, but come
on. Honestly, like, I'll say this because we've talked about this. Like, if there had been some way, like, because it was so cool, was like, I didn't see this coming, and I know you did, and you were the one who kind of pushed that forward for me to even consider this position. And so, but it would have been figuring out a way for us to still do it together. And I think we've been creative. We've obviously went to Israel together as a church, and we figure out ways to see each other. But I think that's the only thing that would have been different, is we'd figure out some way to still do what we're doing. Because now that I'm in it, it's like, oh wow, Lord, I kind of see how you were preparing me, all the way up until this moment to step into this role, even though I was terrified of it. And so, but that would be my one thing you could have done differently, is figure out a way for, you can park the 2 churches next to each other or something. We've picked a central location.
Yeah.
In the country.
Dude, I put the ball up on the tee for you to complete.
I know.
Hit me.
We can just move them. We both buy some property, some oceanfront property in Arizona.
Texas is a big state.
That's true. That's true.
Who knows? Maybe Texas will take over the whole Midwest.
Yeah, I know. Even though people complain about our snow up here, though, I think they secretly love the snow. Hey, Kristen, thank you.
I'll tell you what. I do not. I do not love the snow. I do not miss the snow at all. So here's one of my funnest memories of Chad. Like as you guys know, especially PV folks, but for Austin Oaks folks, this guy is probably the most quick-witted person I've ever met in my life, and I'm trying to get him to get some wit out here. He gets it from his dad. If you ever get the chance to ask him some stories about his dad is hilarious. But one of my favorite memories of Chad, out of the many memories I've had with him, was how quick he was able to create songs on the fly in Israel. Do you remember any of them?
Oh, not
we Israel. Had an album all rolling up, man. We were ready to roll.
Yeah, there were. I do remember us trying to do some stuff. I don't remember the tunes. We need Daryl. Daryl, where are you?
Yeah, Daryl, no kidding.
Daryl has them all written down.
I was so hoping. I couldn't remember either, but I was so hoping you would have a few just coming right out there. But
I don't remember them. Well, I've got one that we wrote on one of our staff retreats. Something that Jen Gelly said, and who's that? Chad, I'm sorry, man. I was the one. You were you're next week. You're scheduled for next week. Chad McCartney.
Goodness. Oh man. But on the real side, I'm really thrilled that you are joining us, because you have this knack of discerning what people need in a present moment. So like specifically, right? We're in this virus shutdown thing, and one of the things I love about Chad is he's got a real sensitive heart to the Lord, and hears them well and speaks in ways that gets right to the quick and gets right to the hearts. And so I wanted you to not just use your gift to bless your church, but to bless the world at large in terms of like sharing a little bit from the sermon. And so I would love to hear from you, man, when you were thinking about what message you were going to give. Like, what made you just go, yep, this is it. Let's talk about this.
Yeah. Well, I think, there's something that Lisa and I have figured out, is that when something goes on with three things, and we call them the trifecta: our health, our finances, and relationships. And if they're all hitting at the same time, we've kind of learned to say, okay, Lord, you have our attention. And so sometimes just knowing like that he's doing something and that we need to pay attention. And so I kind of threw it out to our teaching team, Carl Hansen, Joe McConkey, Daniel Olson, and just said, hey, what do you guys think about pressing pause on our Genesis series? And Carl was the one who actually said, you know what's weird is quarantine right now, the whole idea of social distancing is stay away from people. And he said, except for one, and that would be Jesus. Jesus would actually say, yes, keep your distance from people for a while, come close to me. And so I just said, I think we need to go with it. And so we're kind of in it indefinitely. We started the series, but I think part of it was just like saying, okay, Lord, I feel like you're speaking and wanting to know what he would say. And so the Old Testament is wonderful. And it's a great way to show the redemptive theme of the gospel, and that the gospel was there from the beginning. And we know in Revelation, it talks about how the gospel, before the foundation of the world, the lamb slain. And so it's not like God was like, oh my goodness, what a mess, I need a plan B. Jesus was always plan A. And so we got a blast digging into Genesis and pulling out these threads, but that doesn't mean it's easy. Like
Right.
it takes some work to dig in and to find these gems of, whether it's kind of hidden messianic, indirect prophecies or direct prophecies and things like that. And so it's been fun, but to do that and to take the next step of what does it mean? What's the coronavirus mean for the world right now? What just felt like, this is hard. And so it was honestly like studying this week and just finding a story. And we did Jesus with the paralytic, and it was Jesus in a room, like in a small room with a lot of people. They weren't social distancing, but it was just a breath of fresh air. It was just easy just to say, okay, Lord, I want to be in a room with you and find out how you are going to handle a crisis. And it was like, it felt good for my own soul. And almost like I needed to do it for me first. So that was kind of the start.
Yeah, we're surely not immune to the being anxious and uncertain and asking the what ifs as pastors, because we have to go through it as well.
Yeah, and you and I've talked about this. Like, I think one of the things and it's like people would say this to us, like they talk about, like, when we speak about Jesus and when we teach the Bible, people will say things like, well, we just feel like you're in it with us. And I think as we've heard those comments, the one thing we always say is like, we don't really know how to do it any other way. Like,
right.
it feels disingenuous to just get up there and say, let me tell you something that I already know and that you should know, and you better get, like, it just feels lame. And so to invite people into our own anxiety about things, and man, yeah, I've got it right now for sure with COVID-19.
Well, one of the pictures you showed really moved me, as you were like kind of like playing around, like when you go to a store, it's like the end of the world, can't find certain things. I'm going to pull up the picture that you used. It was really cool. The empty shelves there at Walmart, and it's just Bibles.
Yeah, Bible section.
It's like not only are people taking, the essentials, what we would consider, toilet paper and all that. Like here they are, people scrambling for Bibles, man. Like when you shared that, like you asked this question, and I want you to speak into this question. I want to dig into this a little bit more. It's like, and you said it this way, like, what if Jesus put you into this quarantine?
Yeah.
Like what dive into that a little bit for us.
Yeah, I think and that picture, and then I even read today, I think Joel Rosenberg, he's an author, Christian author, who part of his organization Joshua Fund did a poll. I don't know how many people they had in their poll, but I would assume it's a reputable poll. But they were just asking people in America, why do you think this is happening? And I think it was like 44% said God has something to do with this. Like we know we need to, and I've seen other organizations where they're seeing their Christian organizations, and they're seeing their traffic on the websites or people interested in what they're doing doubling overnight. And so I think there's a gut thing in us, like even though it feels better to say this side didn't do it fast enough, and this person gave misinformation, and no, you're panicking, and no, you're panicking, and no, I'm not, just this, it feels better to do that, like to blame everybody else. But I think when we sit by ourselves, and for me, it's always last moment before I put my head on the pillow at night, and I kind of lay there and I usually talk to the Lord a little bit, and you're there with him, and kind of this, what's going on? Like, what are you doing? We know in our hearts, and even people I think that don't know the Lord yet, there's this little nagging thing inside of them that is saying, what's going to happen if people that I know like succumb to this virus, or what's going to happen to me? Like, what is life about? What
Right.
happens after, like, if something like this can take me, I'm very vulnerable, and I'm vulnerable in my soul and in my spirit. And so there's just something in us that says, I wonder. And I think what I love about Jesus, and we're gonna do it again this week with another story, is people that got around him. There was always a group of people who thought they had him figured out, and they thought they knew what he was about. And usually they're way off. And even when we look at the healings, like, and there's like a ton of stories about Jesus healing people. But if you look at those stories, it's never about the healing.
Right.
Never. Like, in fact, if anything, he's always like, shh, don't tell anybody about this. It's always another layer of, okay, here's the surface thing that this is happening. So coronavirus, here's the surface, something's happening. But kind of the same way that with 9/11 and other things in history, we know that we were made instinctively. We know who made us, and we know we have a creator, and that when things hit the fan, we say, oh, maybe I should ask him. Maybe I should talk to him about it.
Yeah, totally. There's so many, like we were just talking about it earlier today, like how there's so many people posting online now, like, they would say Christians, and some of them are, they're going from the far extreme to God did this.
Yeah.
He's judging the world, and all this kind of stuff, even to the degree where some people are like, see, the end of the world is happening. It's going to happen at the end of 2021. And then you got some folks on the other side saying, it's just sin in the world. It just is what it is. God's not doing anything in it. It's just pull up the bootstraps, like that was the one thing that I absolutely loved about what you said in your sermon, was just like, maybe he might not have caused it, but he's surely going to use it.
Right.
Like even though the story used with the paralytic coming down, it's just like, who talked about forgiveness of sins? Nobody's caring about forgiveness of sins,
Yeah.
And you made that point that I absolutely love. And go ahead, you can preach on this. Like you said, it's like, Jesus, just give us a vaccine.
Yeah.
That was such a powerful point, because I was going, oh my goodness, that's what I'm asking for right now. But like share your heart on that.
Yeah, I think we all want the problem fixed, and we all are watching people suffer, and so there's that's normal, and that's good. Like, that's humanity to say, I don't want people to suffer, I want them to be fixed. But I think just like those 4 guys, yeah, they brought the guy in to be healed, and Jesus speaks to the condition of his heart first. And I think it's the same with us. We would rather God just solve the problem. And so we talked a little bit about God in time on Sunday
Yeah.
as well, that, we think in linear. And so and if you look at the news right now, it's all about how soon or how late we were. And now we've got like special committees that are going to be put in place to investigate. Were you early? Were you late? What's, just all this stuff about time, who knew what and when. And so we put God into that picture, and we react to things that are going to happen that haven't happened. And with him, time is past, present, future. He sees it all at once.
Yeah.
He created it. It's not something that he's up there like, what am I going to do? Oh my goodness, I didn't see that coming.
Right.
Like, and
Yeah.
so COVID-19 was always before the Lord. So a year ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, whenever anybody in the history of the world was like, man, things are great, God was like, yeah, I can see COVID-19.
Yep.
I know what I'm going to do. Now, it's a virus that, and it just, even as I've done a little bit of research, and I don't know this stuff, but I know that it goes in, takes over cells, and it eventually destroys them.
Yeah.
So that's a bad thing. That's a
Right.
bad thing. And yes, could we say result of fallen humanity and the fallenness of our world? Sure. But, and I don't think it's like God's like, oh, hey, I'm going to open up this jar where I keep all these things and I'm going to dump it out on the world and let's see what happens. It's definitely, it's something that we can't even figure out all those things. How does all this work? It's a bigger discussion of suffering and evil.
Right.
But we do know beyond a shadow of a doubt that he works all things for good, and that he's going to use it to move people and to move hearts. And I think that hit me last week when I was studying, talked about it some Sunday too, is that he works all things for good. What is the ultimate good? It's us in relationship with Jesus, and it's in right relationship with him. And so for us to say that anything in our life isn't related to that is not consistent with scripture. The
Right.
Bible tells us, even I was thinking of Solomon with Ecclesiastes. What does he do? He tries everything. He tries everything. And in the end, he says, it's all vanity. It's all nothing. It's all a chasing after the wind. And yet, God has placed eternity in our hearts. And I think that's kind of the whole gut thing of why people know to look to scripture. And even if they don't have a complete understanding of what they should be asking, they know that this has to do with that, with him. And so I think that place of getting past we want to pray for him to bring a vaccine. We want to pray for him to fix this. We want to pray for world economies, for people to get their jobs back. Yes, yes, yes. But we all need to ask, and I think we're safe to ask it at an individual level. Do we need to be making judgments about America or about whatever, or whichever political party you don't like? No. We need to pray for them. But I think, can we ask serious questions? Can I ask a serious question about my heart related to suffering, to what's happening? Can I say, Lord, do you have anything to say to me? Do you have anything that you want to shore up things in my life where maybe I have been putting a little bit too much trust in whatever financial futures or a job? Or I thought I saw this in somebody's tweet last week, where they said, he literally took us out of our stadiums, out of our concerts, movie theaters, everything. He said, you're going to go and have a timeout. You're going to be at home. And I think, it would be a disservice to our hearts to think, yeah, this doesn't have anything to do with anything. And if people had acted soon enough and whatever, we wouldn't be in this mess. Man, I don't know what it looks like, but he's got dials and knobs and switches somewhere, and he turns them and flips them and, to your life, and is making things happen, but for his greater glory, and so that we can know him. Like, I think that's really what I hear in my own heart. And I'm focusing on me and on the role that God's given me with the wonderful people here at Pleasant Valley, and to say, hey, at least we're going to go there. We're going to ask these tough questions and see what God has to say during this time.
Yeah, totally. And it's just, we ask the wrong questions so often. You know, it's just like,
you do.
Yeah. Very good. There it goes.
You do, man. Ask the right questions, Brandon. We did. It was hoodie day.
It's maybe this is something that like we've always did, man. In fact, I was wearing a different hoodie, and my wife said,
"We need Nima to do one of those quick joke things on the bus again." Nima, grab the mic and do. You need to do a joke for us, man. Like,
hey, for the AOC folks, you know his jokes. Imagine that they were worked. Anywho, we won't go there. We won't go there.
Hey, man.
I don't even know where his there. Oh, there you go. But like, you know, we ask the wrong questions so often. You know, and like that's why I love Luke 5 is one of my favorite stories with Jesus. Is like he just comes down and Jesus was so moved by it all, you know, and he just did what he does best. He gives them what he had, the very best of him. He's like, here you go, you know, you're forgiven, you know. But it wasn't even like you pointed this out so well. It wasn't even his faith; it was the faith of his friends. And
Right.
Jesus answered. He met the most deepest need, and the way you painted this picture was Jesus, what he did, especially we're coming up into like the Good Friday and Easter service, like he has the cure for the virus that is
that
ultimate.
will get us.
Right? Yeah. So I mean, man, that was so good.
Yeah, that part about the friends, I think, and that's where I know we're like as a family, and I think probably those of us that we're part of the body of Christ. And I do think so. Little side thing, and Brandon knows this about me, but I if you were to look around my office, even in my life, maybe for like 30 minutes, you're probably going to hear me talk about something about World War II and that generation. And I had a grandfather, you know, who was served there, and it was D-Day +6, and you know, I had a great uncle who did 3 first wave invasions in the Pacific. And so I had this thing in me though my whole life, which was like, why wasn't I born at that time? Because that seemed like a really important time to be alive. That seemed like they sacrificed, and they didn't talk about it. They didn't blog about it. They didn't tweet about it. Nobody was online. There was no online. They just did it, you know? And I know there's war is not pretty, and it's not like there's this like perfect just thing going on. We're fallen people. At the same time, though, I was super appreciative growing up, but I was asked that question. It's like, Lord, why was I born 1972? You know, why not back then? And I feel like, I know, good night. But there's this place in me where I feel like a little bit the Lord's like, you want a time to be alive? How about this? As the church, as a believer in Jesus, you want a time to carry my heart and my gospel? This is the time. And so what does it look like to dig through the roof of the world for us? I think is kind of that question that's rolling around in my head is, you know, I don't think it looks like us getting online and saying, you idiot, you were panicking, you shouldn't be panicking, or, you know, this is awful, we're going to, you know, everything's going to fall apart. Right. Like, or it's that person, it's that political party, if you had done this sooner, we wouldn't be in this mess. Like, we can't play that game as believers. Like, our place is digging through the roof. It's seeing what everybody else doesn't see. Asking oh my, Marianne.
I had to do it.
I was. It's seeing, you know, through the lens of what is Jesus saying. We're in this room with him. We're in a forced time of quarantine with him. How are we going to be the church? How are we going to serve? What does that look like to serve the world, to be, you know, representatives of Jesus? Also knowing that it's not going to be well received.
Yeah.
That part stinks. Like, I would love, you know, ticker tape parade, man. Like, that's what they got in The Greatest Generation. But that's not for now. That's another time when the king returns. That's when we have the ticker tape parade, and that's for him. But I think that's just that's a big question that's on my mind, and what we're going to be digging into as a church with the rest of the series is trying to ask, like, what are you doing, Lord? What does it look like for us to be the church?
Yeah. So why don't we do reveal a little bit of our hearts? as we kind of do every now and then when we preach, but like, let's just kind of pull the curtain back, share maybe our struggles a little bit about, like, as we've been talking, our struggle to live in the present and to not get caught up in the what ifs. What if this happens? What if that happens? And, I know for me, my biggest struggle is where James, he says, I can't remember if it's 3 or 4 or 5 or somewhere in there. It's like, don't worry about tomorrow. Like, you say you're going to do this and you're going to do this. And like, I'm struggling with all of the plans that we had set up as a church. We were going to launch a big vision thing that was going to change everything on this Sunday. And all of a sudden it's like, no, we're not meeting online anymore. It's just like, we're not online. We were meeting live and everything just goes out the window. And it's just like, oh my goodness. And just the humility or like, I felt humiliated in some ways because we were building it up and now asking the questions like, okay, what does this mean for my family? What does this mean? As a pastor, it's hard to make these things open and public because people are like, pastors should always be perfect in their faith, but it's like, what does that mean financially? Because, as people know, and I think you mentioned this in your sermons, like the church is supported by people giving out of their generosity and obedience. And yet we know that they're impacted by this. And so their money is less or zero. And that's going to reflect on the church. And you start to panic with those things. And so for me, I'm having a hard time just going, Lord, anchor me right now, today, in this moment. I don't want to get caught up in the what ifs, but in the right nows. And man, it's tough.
And we've had several conversations about this already, and because we're trying to figure out what to do and how is the Lord going to provide. For sure, actually, when I took the job 2 years ago, I made this deal with the Lord that He wasn't in on. It was my own deal. That I tried. He wasn't having anything to do with it. I told him, I said, look, I'll talk about you. I'll talk about the gospel. I'll talk about the Bible. I'll do all kinds of, whatever. But I don't want to talk about money ever. And deal? Like, it was crickets. Like, not only was it crickets, like last year threw us into a situation where I was forced to talk about it, but somebody, 2 things. One, there was one of the guys on the board, just real gentle, but basically said, first of all, this is God's church, so you don't have to hold it up. Like, He will do that. Second, He talks about money all the time in the Bible. He talks about giving. I was like, oh yeah, that is in there. And so it's a spiritual Achilles heel for me, like the whole thing. And a lot of it is rightly kind of an issue because we've seen abuse in the church, not necessarily our churches, but over the years, people have this thing. There's a stigma about money and people asking for it. But I feel like even as this happened, I was like, man, like we were like, same thing, kind of cruising and excited. We were right there on our budget, just right on it, right on projected giving and everything. And then coronavirus happens. And I was like, come on, come on, Lord. Like, we were doing okay, but I think it's a call just to keep trusting Him and to say, you know what? I'll do it as long as you want me to do it. I will serve you no matter where you call me to. But having staff that are thinking about those things too, it's hard. We're trying to figure that stuff out. And I think also just online ministry stinks. I mean, could we be like straight, like this isn't like, I mean, it's nice. It's great that we have the opportunity, but man, I really do miss seeing people. I miss like just the interaction and what God's doing. And I know that that will happen again, but it's hard. It's hard not to be together.
Yeah, totally. The lesson that I feel like is being drilled into my head and my heart, which I've known, but it's like when you're in it, it just really starts to hit you. And for me, it's man makes his plans, the Lord directs his steps. And it's like, not just, in my own personal life, but it's just like, even as a church, because it's like, you get excited for what you think could be and this and that. It's like, it's His church. And He's, and it's good is like, as we share our vulnerabilities, it's like the Lord's doing some cool things. I think within the hearts of a lot of pastors in this season, because it's helping us rethink maybe where have we gotten lazy, where have we maybe taken our foot off the gas in this aspect of what church is. And so that kind of leads me to this last little question. And I want to ask, and it's kind of one of those things, it's just like one of the questions someone posted on there is like, where have we seen blessings in this? Even starting to think of it. So it's just like when the dust settles, right? Like, what do you think things will look like within the kingdom, within the church?
Man, I think it's probably going to be pretty hard for a while. And even I think once we start to come back out, I think it doesn't mean that like all those jobs just appear out of nowhere. Right. I think we're kind of in for a long haul. And so, but what's cool is we're getting glimpses of people learning how to care for each other and how to be the body of Christ to the world. And I think part of this is what's weird is even though we've been forced to stay home, you're seeing a lot of really creative ways to minister to people. People are, everybody's seen at least one of those videos of people driving up to, and I know you guys had planned one and had to cancel it, but driving up to a hospital and doing a worship prayer time over first responders and physicians and nurses who are right there in the front lines. And, this week I've seen photos of today, nurses gathered on the roof of Vanderbilt Hospital University, praying for their patients, praying, for the Lord to intervene. And so we're watching the Lord kind of invade our lives as he is almost like has us all in a frozen moment where we have to listen. And so I think it'll be different, but I think there's the same way that 9/11 changed the way we did a lot of things, just at a very practical level, the things that we thought about, the things that we got engaged in and around the world, some good, some bad. I think this will definitely affect us. But I feel like there's a pruning, cutting away, refining process that God's doing, a chipping away at rough edges, and so that he can, make us beautiful as his church. There's that promise, like he will present us as a radiant bride. And so, maybe right now we've got some rough edges and he's trying to just bring out the beauty of who he is in us. And so I'm excited about kind of what it will bring, but I do feel like there's a little more difficult kind of road ahead.
Yeah. I wonder, I've been thinking about this. Like, I just wonder if like people won't take community for granted. Like I wonder if there will be a greater fervor or passion for authentic community. People taking some of those things more serious, but like, whoops, mother-in-law calling. I should probably answer that. I think that the part that kind of like, I almost feel like, a little sacrilegious to say this as a pastor, but there's part of me that is hopeful that because now we have to be, that we see that Sunday morning is an important part of what we do, but it's only like a small itty bitty fraction of what we do. Like it's important, but it's not going to have the same like seat of prominence. Like everything's about Sunday morning, it's important for sure, but it's like that's just 1 hour out of how many hours in a week? Like I'm excited to see the church mobilized again, however that looks like. But
I was thinking about the Hebrews 12 cloud of witnesses. We're surrounded by this great cloud of witnesses. I love how Hebrews 11 moves into that, and it doesn't actually move in with like this, like, yay, look at their faith. It like talks about them being sawn in half and undergoing the sword and destitute and wandering in the wilderness. But then this I had open here. It says like all these, though commended through their faith, did not receive what was promised, since God had provided something better for us, that apart from us, they should not be made perfect. So I feel like we're, coming underneath the sufferings of Christ as well. and being allowed to pave the way for those ahead of us, the younger generation, coming up to walk in the ways of the Lord. And that I think I love this picture of this cloud of witnesses, that they can see. Like, I mean, that's kind of what it's saying to us. They see what's going on. They understand COVID-19. Just get this in your head. David, Abraham, Peter, Paul, Mary, like Peter, Paul, and Mary, not the band. But they understand, they understand COVID-19 better than we do. They see God's redemptive plan better than we do. And I think they would all be saying to us, hey, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. Like, head up, look at the one who is the author and perfecter of your faith. But also, don't forget to be the church. Like, learn to be the church out there. And I think you probably, a lot of people have seen this. Like, it's not just that the church has left the building, the church has been deployed. Saw that online. Like, we have been sent out, or maybe it's just a reminder that we've been sent out. That order was never rescinded. The Great Commission has always been in effect. We just like to sit in chairs.
It's so true. It is so true. I mean, like, that's the one thing I love about this. It's like like, I hate to say this, like, it almost feels pathetic that we have to say we're forced now. It is. It's like a just wake up call, not just for the whole world, but even for the church. I think there's like that spot, like in Ephesians, where Paul was quoting, it's like, oh, arise, awake, oh sleeper, and I wonder if there's these moments like in Revelation 2:3 where God's like, hey, churches, come on, you've done this, great, done this, but I have this against you. And like, God is going to use us for his glory. Absolutely. That part is exciting. Like, there's this other side of me goes, gosh, I just don't want to slip back into old habits and old routines, but.
I was thinking about we're about to head into Holy Week, and I was thinking about the Passion movie. And there's that one scene, which I thought Mel Gibson did a great job at that one point, where Jesus is carrying his cross and he falls. It happens to be, he kind of created this scene where possibly Mary could have seen him, and she runs up to him as a mom, kind of like a little bit of, I want to fix this for you. Like, let me help you. I see that you're suffering. And that's kind of that gut instinct we have right now for this whole thing to be over. And you just see him stand up and pick up that cross, and he looks her in the face and he says, behold, mother, I make all things new. And then he gets up and he keeps going. And it's like, I feel like his will, to move forward with the cross, to say, I'm going to do this. I'm going to take up the cross. Like, I'm not going to avoid it. I think we need to draw, encouragement and strength from our Lord, who did accomplish it. He did make all things new, which means we have what we need to make it through this. And that, even if, let's say you, or me, like that something happens to us with this, or some people that we know. And I'm sure that by the time this is all over, there are going to be people that we know that are affected by the coronavirus in a way that we would not wish. Our hope is built on Jesus, and we know he wins. He already won. And so I feel like there's a lot of stuff for us to learn, but I'm excited to see what he's going to do.
I mean, the initial call to follow Jesus is to pick up and carry your cross.
Yeah.
the regardless of the circumstance, regardless of anything, it's just like, we're called to follow. We are here on a mission, period. And there's something very refreshing about all the things that we have propped up in our lives to be dependent on is now kind of yanked away and shooken and shown as vulnerable, and so I'm going to throw up a few questions here that some folks are wondering. I'm just going to post this one up here for context. Leah, he doesn't care.
I don't, but I'll cheer for the Vikings, because I live in Minnesota. But turns out I came from Tennessee, and Tennessee always loses too. And so, man, get my hopes up whenever.
You can cheer for the Vikings. They've never won a Super Bowl, but the Packers are probably close to Cats, which are from a place you don't want to go. So that's how that would work. Now, Todd asked a great question I think is insightful. One's a really insightful question. Ask, what can they pray for us about? But who's the better athlete?
For sure, Brandon. Brandon was the scholarship guy. I was the walk-on and a sub. So I'll say Brandon.
When we play, and that's the end of the story, right there. I think Todd is actually wanting us to say, "Oh, he is. Todd is."
Yeah. Right? Oh, there we go. Yeah.
But
anyway, he's got the little Trinona picture right there, and it's
showing off. It's totally.
What are you trying to say, Todd? What are you trying to say?
That he's more fit than us, and he's older.
For sure.
So let's answer
prayer stuff. Yeah. I think the ability to leave the financial well-being and the safety and health of the people close to me, my family, the staff that I love. I think like it's a prying out of my hands every day to give it back to him. And so I think just that he would continue to be strong enough to say that it's his story about, and that I need to trust him would be probably my number one. I think also we're dads, and so we've got kiddos that are at varying stages of their walks with Jesus. And so I think about my kids, but I also think about all the people that I'm around here at the church and stuff. And I don't want to miss anything, and I don't want to be late to what God's doing. I don't want to be tone deaf to what the Spirit is saying. I want to be quick to obey, and just I want to walk in step with what he's doing. And so and especially because you're in a position of being a husband and a parent and a pastor, you want to take seriously your place as a man of God. And I don't want it to be said of me one day when I stand before the Lord, "Hey man," I don't know if he talks like that or not, but "Hey Chad, 2020, I'm glad you eventually got there, but I wish you would have gotten there a month earlier because I needed you. I was prompting you. My spirit was prompting you to lean in, and you were kind of stubborn or prideful or whatever, So I think that's a huge place for me."
Yeah. Todd, I would say for me is to learn to live in the present and to let the Lord do what he needs to do. That sounds rather vague, but I'm the type of guy that likes to vision cast and build out things and live in the future. And now it's really about learning how to shepherd and to pastor my neighborhood and my family and the church in a different way, to be more intentional. And so this is a great season for me to be very present, where I feel like maybe in the last probably like 3-4 years of my life, that has not been a reality. I'm always been a little bit more let's keep going. And so I appreciate the season, but it's really hard because I tend to want to be grumpy of the 7 dwarfs, as we talked about earlier for context. But thanks Todd for asking that. Really appreciate it. So Chad, I'm going to bring this back up, or it is ready up. Okay, now let's just have a little fun with this. When the dust settles, what do you want to do?
What do I want to do?
Yeah, personally. Like, what are you missing the most? Like, I want to fill in the blank.
I think what's great, let me just say like the good side of this. We're playing more games as a family than we ever have. Board games and good conversations and really fun times together. Yeah.
Or B-O-A?
No, Board. Yeah, like Catan, like a very fun, like I never thought I'd say that, but
I saw the picture of your puppy or your dog playing Catan.
Yeah, there was another picture though of my wife who, like, I had the longest road and she sabotaged it. I had the white pieces for the road and she had a red one, and she took a picture of it, of her sabotaging my road, and then the next day she sent me the picture again. Just to remind me that but no, we've had like sweet times as a family, and I think it's great, but we're also, everybody's feeling that, you just feel it shut down. And so I don't know if it's anything specific as much as it's just like, hey, can we get back to a little bit of normal, like, because I think more than anything, I'm thinking about a lot of future things that could be hindered if we have to continue doing this. And so it's more just the opportunity for a return to normal hanging out with people and being together as a church and going somewhere as a family other than our room, like our family room. And so I think not so specific, but just that normal word would be great, whatever normal is.
Yeah. Well, see, I cheated. I had some time to think about it. I was like, here's what I would like to do when the dust settles. I would like to go on a date with my wife and go to Terry Black's, eat a lot of brisket, and try to eat 2 beef ribs without getting sick.
That's a very, and now deep thoughts with Brandon Ziski. I'd like to eat 2 beef ribs without getting sick.
Oh, come on. That's it. But hey, Chad, so great to see you, man. Miss you.
Bro. You too.
Pleasant Valley is blessed to have you. Mean that with all my heart. I'm super thrilled for what God's doing up there, and hopefully things change by June so you can get your tail down here.
Amen.
But hey,
Ted
thanks.
Blacks.
Yes. She knows what's going on. Now hold on here.
Yes.
I want to tell you this. Did you see what Todd said after we were talking about him? Look at this.
He's saying that. What is easy, Todd?
I think
being an athlete is easy for you.
I think we were saying that he was better than us. I think
he's saying it's easy for him to be a better athlete.
Yeah, we're trying to. I think this calls for church discipline. Get him in front of the elders. Anywho, Chad, appreciate it.
Thanks, Brandon.
Look at this. He's just like he has no. Anywho, be blessed. Love you, man.
You too, man. Love you too, bro.
Bye-bye. Oh, yeah, I got to push a button or something, don't I? There we go. Hey, thanks for tuning in, guys. Next week, I'm hoping to have 2 really sweet interviews. I'm trying to work on them, and so we'll keep you posted on that. It should be excellent. But I trust and hope that this was encouraging for you. And I ask that you would continue to keep your heart and your eyes on Jesus. If you haven't listened to Pastor Chad's message on being quarantined with Jesus, you can go to pvwinona.com. Watch the sermon. It was excellent. It will bless you. It will encourage you. But again, tune in next week. It's going to be a great time. All right. Until then, take care. Be safe. Be smart.